Here we are celebrating 75th birthday of the State of Israel. In order to celebrate this event, we've invited 4 individuals, each with their own unique and very different perspectives on the significance of the land of Israel and the State of Israel. As you hear their stories, ask yourself, which of these 4 do you most identify with? What aspects of what they say do you agree with or disagree with? Let's welcome our very first guest. Please give a round of applause for Rabbi Yehuda Eisenbach. Shalom Aleichem.
Hello. So this is, yeah?
You talk into it. Please introduce yourself to the crowd.
My name is Yehuda Eisenbach. I'm in 8th generation Yerushalmi, and my family arrived here in 1805. It was then called Palestine. They were a group of immigrants from Vilna. They were Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon, and we came here with a feeling that when we would return to Eretz Yisrael and establish ourselves here, we would hasten the arrival of Mashiach. I have branches of my family in Tzvat, and Tiberia, and Hebron, and many members of my family, along with other family members, established Mea Shorim, what you many of you may have walked there when you visit on Friday and buying all kinds of things for your family. I'm sure maybe you know my cousin. He was in the Purim Spiel. He looks a little bit like me.
Now that we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the birth of Medinat Yisrael, tell us, what are your feelings on this momentous occasion?
Momentous occasion? Today is a momentous disaster. Totally disaster. When my family came here in 1880 to Palestine, we were a close-knit Eilche, Yidden, 25,000 Jews, and then in comes this influx of secular no-goodniks, and because of Meshuganas like Herzl and Wolfson and all these people, they told people to come to Palestine and build a secular state, and that's all you need to be a Jew in today's world. Nishkin Shabbos, Nishkin Kashrus, Nishkin Davening, Hop Nishkin Teles and Tfillin, and the Bochrim and the Meidelech tanzen zusammen. It was terrible. Just terrible today.
But, Rabbi Eisenbach, don't you know what was going on in Russia in the 80s and 90s? The pogroms, the murder, the pillaging, the bloodletting. The Tsar himself sponsored the bloodshed. Where were these Jews supposed to go? And if these Jews weren't frum, was it their fault? Wasn't that the fault of a lack of a healthy Jewish education? Isn't their lack of frumkeit a result of all the secular influences that were not addressed during their formative years growing up in Europe?
Yes, but why should they come here and disturb a peaceful, close-knit kehillah and impose their issues on the rest of us and my family? And besides, at the time, the local Arabs, we got along with them very well. With now, they were angry and inflamed against us when these secular no-goodniks came here and disturbed everything.
So what would have been better? Should they have gone to the United States, as did millions of their brothers and sisters, and intermarry and assimilate and disappear as Jews? At least here, they wish to maintain their Jewish identity. As far as the Arabs, do you really believe that the Arabs love you and our present difficulties are only a result of these modern secular Jews coming to Palestine? How do you explain the victory against all odds of 600,000 poorly armed, outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered soldiers overpowering 5 invading Arab armies in 1948? Isn't that the Yad Hashem? Is that not the sign of the beginnings of the Mashiach that you spoke about?
Listen to me, Rabbi Kamenetsky. The Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't assist Rishon in creating a Medina that's not founded on Torah mitzvahs. They had a stroke of mazel, those soldiers, what can I say? Look at the song Hatikva, what you sing. Liot Am Chavshi, we don't want to be an Am Chavshi, we want to be Oivdei Hashem Yisborach.
So what is it to you specifically that draws you and your family to this land? Why is it significant to you?
That's very easy to answer. It's Eretz HaAvos, a land that was promised by Kodesh Baruch Hu to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and it's the one place where the mitzvahs Tuluyas Ba'oretz we can follow, and we can follow what Hashem says. The greatest Gedolim lived here, the Ponovitch Yerov, and Rav Yoshev, and the Chazon Ish, and the Stipler, and Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and Rav Stein, and Rav Shach. There's more Torah being taught here than there is in the entire world, in the entire history of the Jewish people, and that's ultimately why the Shekhinah is going to come here. I have to go now because I have a taxi waiting for me to take me somewhere, but I don't know.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Eisenbach.
Gentlemen, does anyone know what segment of the population, what do we call the segment of the population that Rabbi Eisenbach is representing? Just raise your hand. You could raise your hand. Does anybody know what segment of the population we're talking about? Shh, Tzvi Yehuda. Who is he representing? The Haredi population. Anyone know what percentage of the Jews in Israel are Haredi population? Anyone know what percentage? No speaking, no speaking. If you have something to say, raise your hand. Anyone know, you want to take a guess at it, someone? What do you say? 45%. 45%. The correct, not 45%, you're much closer. The correct percentage is the Haredi population in Israel today is 13% of all Jews in Israel. 13% of all Jews, 13%. Anyone know what percentage of Israel is completely secular with no connection to any religion? What percentage of people in Israel? Anyone know? What do you think? Excellent. It's actually 42% of all Jews in the country are completely secular. Is there anything that Rabbi Eisenbach just mentioned? Is there anything that Rabbi Eisenbach just mentioned that strikes you as like, hey, I identify with that. That makes sense to me. Like, I could identify with what he said. Anything that he said, yeah, what do you, someone, no? Anybody? What do you say, Eitan?
I agree with when he said that Israel is ours and that Hashem promised it to our forefathers, so it is ours and that's why we should be there. But I also disagree with trying to hasten Mashiach coming. I think that Hashem will bring Mashiach when he thinks it's the right time for Mashiach to come.
And one last question. Does anyone know, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that there's a certain animosity, there's a certain tension in Israel that's directed at the Haredi community. Anybody know what's the big tension that's created about the Haredi? What do you say, Aaron? Yeah, the fact that the Haredi community lives in Israel and does not serve in the army. Anybody understand how they get away with that? Why is that true? Anybody know why that's true? Shh. What do you say?
They say their prayers are protecting Israel.
Their prayers and learning, and there's a law in Israel that says if you're learning in yeshiva and praying that you don't have to serve in the army. Okay, this is statement number one. Please, now, give your attention. Our next guest
is Rahamim Mizrahi, a cab driver from Tel Aviv. Please welcome Rahamim Mizrahi. Looks like Rachamim had a few too many shawarmas recently. Shalom. Rachamim, I understand you are a cab driver from Tel Aviv. Tell us about your background and upbringing.
My grandparents arrived here in 1949. They used to live in Aleppo in Syria, what they called Haleb in Arabic. And you know why they came here in 1949? Because when Menilat Israel was announced, there were riots and there was pogroms there. And throughout North Africa and Middle East, I lost cousins who were killed in the streets of Haleb. My grandparents' business was ransacked and plundered and looted. And my grandparents escaped here in the middle of the night secretly. And a little bit my accent is transforming into the guy beforehand, but that's okay.
Rachamim, tell us about your lifestyle, your family.
Sure, I live in South Tel Aviv now, a working class neighborhood where I have plenty of friends and family. I'm not happy about the fact that the Ashkenazim over the years, they treat me like a second-class citizen, but how can I complain? I live in the Jewish state. Shabbat, my day off from work. My Chagim are celebrated in this country. My children speak the language of Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. And unlike my grandparents who had to flee from Aleppo in the dead of the night, their great-grandchildren and my children, they're standing on the front lines to protect, to live in this beautiful, beautiful country.
You know, Rachamim, I find it interesting that you mentioned the Hagim. You live in Tel Aviv. You know that Shabbat and the Hagim don't exactly look here like they looked when your grandparents observed them back in Aleppo, Syria. You speak about your forefathers, but here in Tel Aviv, where you live, you know...
Habibi, Rabbi Kramlevitsky, live and let live. Yehudim come in all types of shapes and sizes, as you can see here. And different size kippot, and different hair or no kippot. They are allowed to observe halachot like they want to, and I can observe halachot like I want to. So don't bother me.
Rachamim, what is it to you specifically that draws you and your family to this land? What's its significance to you?
Habibi, this is the land that Jews stand erect and independent. We're not at the mercy of a sultan or a caliph or an imam. True, Iran is becoming a big threat to us, but we have the means not to just defend ourselves, but to go on the offensive if need be. Wherever a Yehudi is in trouble anywhere in the world, the state of Israel and the IDF will be there for them. Do you remember when the world closed down a couple of years ago from the COVID pandemic? El Al Airlines was able to retrieve a group of Israelis stuck in Santiago, Chile, of all places. And not just Yehudim, not just the Jewish people. When a huge earthquake struck in Turkey a few weeks ago, who was amongst to respond and send in a search and rescue and hospital team? You guessed it, Medinat Israel, State of Israel, and the IDF.
Now, Rachamim, what do you think of the Haredim, who don't serve in Tzahal and seem a bit extreme in their views?
Habibi, they're worse than the Arabs. They're living off the fat of the land, and my kids are protecting them, and they just sit in the Beit Midrash all day.
But what about the fact that most of the chesed organizations run by this country are manned by the Haredim?
Yes, maybe deep inside they do one or two good things, and after all, they do keep on Masoret. But I wish they contribute more to our society, and they keep on multiplying, and if they keep on multiplying and have 10 children every time, there's not going to be any room for people like me there. Anyway, I must go. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Shalom Aleichem. Thank you, Rachamim. Oh, he doesn't get a hand, Rachamim?
Of the entire Israeli population is completely secular. Did anything resonate with what Rachamim said about why are the secular Jews interested in staying in Israel? Why are they staying in Israel? If they don't observe any Yiddishkeit, what's the point of staying in Israel? What do you say?
Well, it shows they still have some connection, the Jewish people. So it's good to see that they still feel connected.
Exactly. I'm happy that you pointed that out. What do you say, Avi? Shh. There are no goodniks, or there are no goodniks? There are no goodniks. What's the big claim that the secular Israelis? What's the big claim that the secular Israelis have against the other communities? What's their big claim? Exactly right. They feel like they're the ones that are losing children in the army. Gentlemen, can someone, I don't know if you've been watching what's been going on with the recent unfortunate terrorist attacks, but one of the things that's happened as a result of the terror attacks in Israel that unfortunately have claimed lives of Haredi community, of national religious, of secular, that is this idea that everyone is at the same amount of risk. Is there anything about what the secular Israelis said that you feel is wrong, that you were against, that you did not resonate with you? Anything that he said that you think is not right? Yeah, what do you say?
He said that everyone can observe halachos how they like.
Okay. Thank you, Eliezer Hirsch Ped. Our next guest is, please welcome for me, Dr. Artie Bernstein from Woodmere, New York. Please welcome Artie Bernstein from Woodmere, New York. Hey, Dr. Artie.
Hey, I feel a little weird because I sent my kids to Rambam, but thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Artie, tell us a bit about your background and your connection to the land of Israel.
Sure. I probably am similar to many of you. I grew up in a modern Orthodox community, actually in Flatbush, and K through 12. I was in the yeshiva Flatbush. You might know one of my classmates, Eli Storch. He was a character back then. Now, when I was in Flatbush, there was no more Yom Tov more central to my upbringing than Yom Ha'atzmaut, especially in high school, where our principal emphasized that we are the blessed generation that has lived to see the revival of Medina Israel from the ashes of the Holocaust.
Tell us, Artie, during those years, what did the celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut look like and mean to you?
During my high school years, there were no regular classes on Yom Ha'atzmaut. There was a tefillah chagigit in the Beit Midrash. There was Hallel with a bracha, full Hallel, and a festive luncheon. And the best part was the blue and the white cookies. I have since matured since then. I moved to the suburbs and I own an apartment in Yerushalayim, in Rehavia no less, right across the street from the Inbal Hotel. Is there any better location in all of Israel than right next to the Inbal Hotel? As often as I can, I visit for the Chagim, and of course, now that I'm partially Israeli, I only keep one day of Yom Tov. Yep. You know, I feel so comfortable in Yerushalayim. My neighbors and the guests of the Inbal Hotel are just like me. My Hebrew isn't all that good, but where I live, it doesn't need to be.
Okay, but aside from the shawarma and shopping in Mamila Mall, what does Eretz Yisrael actually really mean to you?
You mean the falafel and apple pizza and Cafe Ramon? Listen, this is the land of our avos promised to them by Hashem. It's the center of Judaism in the world today, and the impact that a year or two of study in Israel and yeshiva can have on my children, well, that's endless.
And may I ask, where do your kids live?
Of course, they live in Teaneck and Bergenfield, and I'm proud that they're supporters of important causes in Israel, as am I. Even my black sheep son, who lives in Lakewood, regularly contributes and visits to Israel when he has the opportunity to do so.
And what's your favorite part of visiting Israel?
Visiting Israel, we love to go to Israel to visit all the most important holy sites, like rappelling in the Negev and kayaking in the Kinneret and hiking in En-Gedi and climbing the Sada. There's nothing like a good food tour in the Shuk and Mei Yesharim on Friday. Man, that's the life. These are real Jewish experiences.
Well, Artie, if I can ask you, can I call you Artie?
Please, Arthur.
Arthur. Dr. Artie, if Israel's so significant to you, why are you and your family still living in the United States?
Well, look, I have my family here, my grandchildren are here, my ability to be as supportive as I am comes from my successful career as a family pediatrician, and a strong Israel needs a strong American Jewish community to back it up. Let me share a secret with you. If any of my kids make Aliyah, undoubtedly, it's to Israel that I'm going to retire.
But why not go now when you and your family can really contribute to the country? You don't think we need doctors in Israel? With all the terror attacks, we need people to support the medical community. With all the knowledge that you have, you could probably teach people in the medical field in Israel.
Look, we just built a new house. My wife likes it here, and my wife is terrified about all the attacks she reads on Instagram. I mean, we can't live there.
And do you really think that the future of our people is here in America for Jews? Isn't there so much anti-Semitism here? In the malls and schools and shuls and churches around the country? Is a Jew really safe anywhere?
I'm the president of my shul. I'm very well connected with the Nassau County Police Department. I think we're pretty safe here in America where we are. Thank you.
Well, Artie, thanks so much for being with us.
Was anyone here able to identify with Artie? Could you?
Yeah, I left that guy.
Do we know people like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Do we know people like that? Question. Question for you. What about what he said did make sense to you, did resonate with you? What about what he said did? What do you say, Solomon? Shh. Repelling an apple pizza. That's what Israel's all about, repelling an apple pizza. Anything else that he said that does resonate with you? Yes, Eitan. Shh.
You don't need to speak so much Hebrew.
You don't need to speak so much Hebrew to go to Israel. Okay. Is there anything that he said that you don't agree with?
No.
Anything that he said that you don't agree with? Did you think he had good excuses of why he doesn't live in Israel? Let's hear someone say something intelligent. Shh, someone aside from Eitan who's helping you. Yes, Rosner. Shh.
The excuses weren't good. Like what he actually was, I assume, trying to say was that he didn't want it, which is a good excuse.
Not wanting to. Okay. Raise your hand. Yes, Usher Zelig, what do you say? Last point, and then we'll go to the fourth and final guest.
I feel like a profession shouldn't hold someone back because you can get a job in Israel with like.
Correct. A profession shouldn't hold you back because.
But the family aspect, having children, grandchildren here is understandable.
Okay, very, very good point. I want to just highlight that point that Usher Zelig just made. If you can just give me your attention, guys. We only have 5 more minutes if I just need your attention. Usher Zelig said, profession should not be a good excuse not to make Aliyah because almost every profession you could do in Israel, but family, he said, is a good excuse because a lot of times people have to take care of elderly parents or other family members. I love that point. Thank you, Usher.
And finally, our last guest is, please help me welcome, gentlemen, Ilan Ben Ami. Please welcome Ilan Ben Ami.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you for having me.
Ilan, please tell us about your upbringing.
My great-grandparents arrived here in what was then British Palestine in the 1930s, just barely escaping Hitler and the Nazis. Both of my parents fought in 1948. My father fought again in the Sinai in 1956, and he was amongst the liberators of Yerushalayim in 1967. My father studied under Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, and not long after the liberation of Yehuda v'Shamron, my father and mother moved with us and founded the community of Beit El. I have served in the IDF for many years, in the infantry in the Lebanon, and as a commander by the Gaza Strip.
What is the significance? What is the significance of Yom HaAtzmaut and Medinat Yisrael to you and your family?
Open the Chumash, open the Tanakh. Have we not been promised by Moshe Rabbeinu and the Nevi'im and the Ba'achrit Hayamim, Hashem will gather us from all corners of the world? It's happening right now. Are there not Jews from every corner of the globe who are citizens of the state of Israel? Is it not true that the world's largest community is now located in Medinat Yisrael? Is it not true that there are many more Talmidei Yeshiva and young women studying in Ulpanot and Batei Yaakov in Eretz Yisrael today than there were even in the days of Bayit Sheni? I feel that this is the beginning of our history, and what today is clearly nearly the end of our years in Galus.
Are you comfortable with the fact that close to 75% of the Israeli population is not observant? How do you explain that?
I am convinced, as was Rav Kook, that the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel is the first step in the return of the Jewish people to Torah Yisrael.
But what do you answer to the arguments of the Haredim? What about the fact that the land is run by not from people? The land is being run by those who are not observant.
Does not the Mishnah say in Masechet Sotah that in the days prior to the arrival of Mashiach, Emet Ne'ederet, the truth will be hidden? We see clearly Yad Hashem in all that has transpired, even though we don't fully understand his methods today.
Do you have a message to deliver to your family who is still living in New York?
To my family here, come home, your arrival is long overdue. Isn't it true that when parents have sons or daughters who don't always live up to their expectations, the door is open, always open, and a warm, loving embrace is always available? The Navi says, V'shavu banim levulam, you are all children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even if so many have gone astray, by creating Medina Israel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has opened the door for all of his children to return home.
Thank you so much, Ilan Ben Ami. Thank you for sharing.
So, gentlemen, what we tried to present, and a special round of applause and a thank you to Rabbi Farber for his. I would just like someone. Can anyone try to understand? I'd like someone to try to articulate. And we're done. We're done. Just give me 3 more minutes. I want someone to try to articulate. Does anyone understand what the message of this program was supposed to be? What were we trying to communicate? What were we trying to communicate? Eitan's so amazing, he keeps on helping me out. I want to hear from somebody else. Can someone tell me what exactly it is? Micha, help us out. What do you think this program was trying to communicate?
To show that all different kinds of people support the land of Israel and show how important it is. Even if they have a different view, they still look at it as the place to be.
Fantastic. Can you come up here and say that?
The message of today's program, exactly as Micha just said.
The message of today's program, and thank you, Micha, for articulating it, is there are many different kinds of Jews. There are Jews who are Haredi, there are Jews who are Dati Le'umi. You know what that term means, Dati Le'umi? Dati Le'umi, religious Zionist, Dati Le'umi. There's the secular Israelis who are also 1,000% Jews. There are American Jews who visit Israel. The state of Israel belongs to all of us. We may have some differences, and we may identify with little pieces of different aspects of the Jewish population, but our yeshiva particularly, we believe very much in Avas Yisrael, in loving every Jew, and in believing that the state of Israel is the spiritual home for every single Jew. And we daven that just like in 1948 we got back the state, and in 1967 we got back Yerushalayim. And hopefully Hashem will continue to give us bits and pieces, and we'll continue to have more and more success there in Israel until that day when Yerushalayim will be Ir Shechubra La Yachtav, the city that all people come together in. Thank you very much for joining in the program. Would you please head to Shir.